Uh-oh. We are on air. I dropped my microphone. Pete, Denny, we are live on YouTube. I'm going to pull you up on the screen. Say hello to the YouTube world.
What's up, folks? What's up? Oh yeah, here we go.
Cool. Let me get mine pulled up so I can I can see the comments as they come in. I want to see the comments. Well, I'm struggling with this.
Yeah, mine says chat is disabled for live stream. What did we do wrong?
Do what?
Mine says chat is disabled for live stream.
Oh no.
Oh no. What do we do?
If anybody's watching, send us some chats. And let's see if we can see it. I apologize, everyone. We're going to work out just a few of the technical kinks here real quickly. Because I don't think either one of us have ever done this before.
Negative.
It does. It says chat is disabled for this live stream. Let me see if I can go in the back way and change that real quick. Because sometimes there are some backdoor things you can do with YouTube that is kind of cool. Pete, how you doing today? How's your day been? You got me, Pete? Oh, he stepped away. Hang on, everybody. I'm going to switch this over here. There we are. There we are. All right, let me do a little back end work here and see if we can get some going. How's your day been, Pete? You been doing all right?
I'm good, man. Went to worship this morning and went and got a Elizabeth Stromboli and come home, and I made my mind up I'm gonna go and do my seeding in my yard next Saturday and Sunday. And so I took my yard down to 3 inches today, so it's looking a little bit rough.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know, right? That's why I've done all that irrigation work and stuff, and the yard's beat up.
Yeah, that's right. That's
it's
right.
a little more than typical seeding job.
Well, here's the deal, Pete. We are not going to be able to take comments in real time. I don't know why. If my email will be open, if anybody knows how to make that change, feel free to shoot me an email while we are doing this. In the meantime, Pete, let's go ahead and get started here. Hang on 1 second. Let me pull up the list of questions myself. And that way I have some literature to go by and I can keep up with the conversation, and I will switch the camera back and forth, you and I, so that way we're going, who's talking and what's going on with what.
My screen is froze, man. I lost you.
All right, I'm back. Let's get Pete back. Oh, all right. Pete just texted me. He's coming on board. I apologize about that. There we go. There we go. All right, so I promise we did this last night and it worked. It is now, but I think we're good. We'll let him come back on, and we will get this bad boy started. CD Andrews with the chat. I did that. CD Andrews, and for some reason, I don't know if it's I'm doing it through Google Hangouts or what, but it will not let the chat show. And I even went in and checked to make sure it was edited for the live chat, but for some reason it won't do it. I don't know why. Oh,
There we go.
there we go.
Let's see here.
There we go. Let me try this again. I'm going to try and enable the chat one more time here. It gives me. Can't get some
Yeah, it worked fine last night.
communication going. It was easy. Last night it was super easy.
Yeah, I know. Were you on Wi-Fi last night?
I'm getting text messages from people. I'm seeing you. The questions aren't showing though. Yeah. I was. Change the settings in the if. Okay, it's refreshes the chat up. I have to take a second, F5 or hit the refresh, and the will. Mike now. CD today again. My goodness, what's your PayPal account? I will send you some money for the technical support you offered today.
What do you do?
Pete Denny going to town on his phone.
Oh, my phone's blowing up, man. They all saying for me to take this shirt off and it'll work. I never used that text.
They don't know a good shirt when they see it. That's
right.
all right.
That's right. Haters, man. Haters.
All right. Now we got the chat going. Everybody's saying glad to see you, Pete.
What's up? I guess the chat's not going to show up on my screen. What do I need?
You got to refresh. Hit the refresh button on the YouTube video part of it.
Oh, refreshed.
And that chat will show up on the right side.
Oh,
Can everybody hear me okay? I'm using an external mic. Oh, look at Pete commenting in there. He's here. What up, Skipper? What's up, Andy? City Andrews, email me your PayPal. I'm gonna send you some tech support cash.
yeah, I want to give him some advice too. Quit texting me those nasty comments.
You see, I'm not wearing orange today. Don't hate on me too much.
That's right.
Well, Pete, you wanna start with the questions? We'll start with question number 1, and we'll just kind of jump into it.
Sure. The question, I'm guessing, is from Brandon. When doing a lawn renovation with poor or non-existent topsoil, particularly on new construction houses where it's straight clay mixed with rocks, what are some of the best options to incorporate organic matter into the soil? From what I have researched, it seems best and more economical to incorporate compost after aeration year after year until you get the desired results. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, when you go into a housing development, the first thing they do is rip off the topsoil, if there's even any there. And of course, you're left with nothing but crap. And you know, if money wasn't an option, then yeah, come in with 2 or 3 inches of compost, put it down, take some kind of a machine and kind of work it into the top 2 or 3 inches of clay and kind of get it all mixed in there together. That's a pretty expensive deal, depending on the size of the yard, obviously. And then long term, you can add things like milorganite, you know, on a steady program, humic acids, you know, things like that. Any type of organic material. And I'd almost say the more the better. I think there would be a point where you could overdo it too much, but what that point is, I really couldn't tell you. But we put a lot of organics into our yards throughout the course of a year, and they seem to do pretty good. All right, did anybody catch any of that?
I'll chime in a little bit there. You know, that's going to be your fastest success. Now, I was going to say that is way to success. Compost. It's expensive, you know, especially depending on where you are in the country. It's going to vary between $1 a yard all the way up to $60, $100, $120 a yard. So, you know, if money is the other to go with, so you see things you can do on it right out the bat, or even during establishment, you know, start supplementing with something that's based in carbon. So whether that's, you know, milorganite, like you said, biosolids, humic acid, anything that's going to have that carbon content will help jumpstart that soil and help jumpstart that root system, that turf grass, to start that root cycling effect where you'll get the development of the roots. The roots will die. Those dead roots turn into organic matter. It's a much, much slower approach than just going out with straight compost. But effectively, it's the same thing where one, you're looking at a 2-3 year process. The other one, you're looking at instant implementing. So hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, if you're putting compost on existing grass, one of the biggest mistakes I've seen is putting too much, too thick. If you put compost on bare dirt, it's different. You can put almost as much as you want, but if you put it on top of,
that's right,
you don't want to suffocate the stem and the crown of the plant and all that stuff down in there That's why you do it in light applications year after year. But the best and quickest,
that's right.
bare dirt, go in and have at it with the compost, and then put your seed or sod down.
If you don't have a Harley rake, it's a good time to invest in a Harley rake or an aerator,
Hey,
like Pete's got.
that's right.
Well, bring us into question number 2.
You don't have your questions?
I do, but I like you reading them.
Oh Lord, see, I was liking you reading them. I've watched all your herbicide videos. I'm still unsure of the best way to structure my herbicide program. I live in Charlotte. 90% of my yards are fescue, and I am a small business with less than 25 yards. I attempted to stay with basic 3-way weed killers for 75% of my program, and spiking with 3-way in a backpack as needed. Hard to kill weeds. Seems most products on the market that have more than 3 products are overkill for most situations. What are the staple herbicides for each time of the year for fescue yards? Did you catch that?
I did. This is, you know, I always say that herbicides are kind of my wheelhouse. For some reason, I understand more of how to kill weeds better than I do how to grow grass. There's more chemistry involved in killing weeds. There's more biology involved in growing grass, and I understand chemistry a little better than I do biology. I'm not great in both, but I do understand the chemistry part. So the question is a fair question. The issue is, I understand that you're tempted to stay with basic 3-way weed killers for 75% of your program because broadleaf weeds are going to be 75% of the weeds you face. And then, yeah, you can spike your backpack as needed. However, what you have to keep in mind is going to be label restrictions. The biggest one that comes to mind is 2,4-D. You're limited to, 128 ounces per acre per year. So you're looking at 2 full rate applications of 2,4-D in a 3-way based product a year. So keep that in mind. You may have to use a product like, which is 2,4-D free, it substitutes with MCPA if you continue to need to use a broadleaf weed control. The other thing too is there's other products out there that are not basic, but they're good 3-way products like Escalade, Ship 3's another one, Momentum FX2, or you could just go out with Turflawn Ester. It can be a great one, but it's very important that, yeah, they may be basic 3-way weed controls. However, you really need to take the time to understand those labels because they are basic because they're everywhere. However, a lot of chemistry going on in those 3-way herbicides that you have to understand each one of those active ingredients for you. So yeah, most products on the market that are combination products, like or to me, that's just way overkill. I don't think that's necessary. If I need to run some, I'm going to run them separately. I may run 4D. So Fincher's rarely will throw in top. Guys, for each SKU, pretty hard to say, but wintertime it's going to be a 3-way based herbicide and triclopyr. During the summertime, it's a lot of dismiss, a little bit of quinclorac, a little bit of triclopyr, and then in the fall is more triclopyr, and I'll probably get a little goofy with it, maybe throw in some quicksilver and or octane, which is pyrofluoroethyl. So it's hard to say. It just really just depends on the types of weeds I'm dealing with and what product I'm going to spray to kill them, because there's products on the market. But having a good relationship with the three-way herbicide is a good thing because it is so. Anything to add to that, Pete?
Just another answer to his question. What my staple products are is just a good three-way like a Trimec. We use that all the way up until about May. Then we switch over to Escalade. We run that through the entire summer. And then Sedge Hammer for nut sedge, Drive Accelerate for crabgrass. And then during the early months in the year, January, February, even into March, as long as it's cool, we'll spike that we'll spike that three-way with triclopyr. Because that's typically when you see the wild violet and the hairy bittercress and stuff like that. You need a little triclopyr in there to take those out. You catch that? Did you catch that?
I did.
Okay. Well, Thomas, just what's your feelings on speed zone versus T zone? Speed zone's pretty good. I'm not a fan of T zone. That's just kind of a hot mix for me. If I wanted to T zone, I would mix triclopyr separately, because that would be the only reason I would even want the T zone is for the triclopyr in it to catch, some of those hardcore weeds. And I would probably just mix just triclopyr. T-zone is rough on fescue. If you spray it during the summertime, it's hard on it. And I want to limit any kind of herbicide damage that you can do.
Pete, do you see this one in here that says my test results came back pH at a 5.26? If I put in all the extra humus, 2-inch rototill, will that raise the pH up? My soil test was terrible. Sodium, boron, and sulfur. I feel like you need to go ahead and start supplementing some calcium too if your pH is that low.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you can use like Solucal, and you can use like I think it's about 5 or 6 bags an acre, and that will give you 1 point. It'll raise you 1 point. The thing is, you're not really going to be able to raise it, but about 1 point every 4 to 6 months. So that's going to be a slow process to get that pH up to where it needs to be. Well, actually, you're 5.26, so you're just about a point off. 6.5 is pretty good. So I don't know what size yard you got.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I'd say go out with like 12 pounds per 1,000 of that Solucal or Vertical or Vertilon, and that'll raise it a point. It's going to take quite a bit of time though to pull something that low up a full point.
I agree.
Iron. Do you feel iron has color response with fescue? Any tricks for pushing the color?
Oh yeah.
I'll let you answer that one.
Of course, iron greens are good. I was always taught back in the day you actually put iron in the tank to compensate for the yellowing effect that some herbicides might have, kind of offset that. And of course, the more I used it, heck, we'll put iron in with fungicides, to kind of enhance the color during the summer and stuff like that. So most certainly does. And then the second part of that was tricks for pushing color. Yeah, feed that joker, man. Nitrogen.
That's right. Don't be scared to feed it. And one thing to keep in mind is that calcium is going to move nitrogen through that plant faster than anything. So keep that in the back of your head. All right. Well, let's move on to the next question here. What do you miss? I think this one's directed at me. What do you miss about the golf course industry? I'm a former superintendent. Missed the challenge of maintaining high quality putting greens. I agree that it's really miss about being on a golf course is dealing with you know, bent grass mowed at 185 thousandths of an inch. I mean, that's a different skill set. It's not any more challenging than residential lawn care, but it's not any less challenging than residential lawn care. However, you do tend to develop a little bit of a routine with the golf course, and you know what to expect year after year. Residential lawn, so it's just a set, but it's line. So don't miss, and I'm telling you, and when you spend, especially trying to keep tire. And then I think, what is his favorite job? I'll let you start with this one.
What is your favorite and least favorite parts of the job? Ha ha. Man, we could stay on this question the rest of the day, man.
No doubt.
Favorite part is, I would say, my freedom. That's probably my absolute favorite. I'm the boss. You know, I've been doing this 15 years. I put in all the hard work, the Saturdays, the working till dark. When I started this company, I had lights on my Exmark, and I would mow up until 10, 11 o'clock at night, every night, trailer parks and anything I could mow, just to be able to put money back and save so I could hire an employee. That's kind of how it all started. So I now enjoy my freedom that I have in saying, hey, if I'm gonna take a day off, I go take a day off. Now you can ask my guys, I don't take any day off. I work pretty much just as hard as they do every single day. But the bottom line is my freedom. Another favorite thing is taking a piece of dirt and making it look good. You know, however you want to generate that in your head, just taking dirt and making it look good, whether it be grass or mulch or pine needles or plants or whatever. That's just that's satisfying to me. My least favorite part of it is having to be the boss. That's my least favorite, because, you know, me as a person, I'm very forgiving and graceful and want to give people 100 million chances. And then sometimes you just can't do that as a boss. You just have to put your foot down and say, no, you can't do that. And that's personally, that's difficult for me to do, because I'm just not that type of aggressive, confrontational person. So that's probably my number one least favorite part, is dealing with employees that just don't want to come in, and you expect them to do their job and do it right and do it every day, day after day. And then in return, they get rewarded with a paycheck and benefits and stuff like that. And when they don't do that, in my mind, I'm like, do it. And I don't like putting my foot down on that. So that bugs me. And customers that don't want to accept facts. That's the other least favorite part of my job. You know, just a quick example: grass needs water. When the grass doesn't get water and it goes stressed out in summer, and the customer just simply don't want to accept that, that's probably my least favorite part. That, you know, to me, it's common sense. If me or you went without water for a week, we would struggle. And if the grass goes without water for a couple of weeks, you got to expect it to struggle. And when someone doesn't want to accept that fact, that gets on my nerves. So, what about you? Your mic is messed up.
You know, I think is it? I let's see.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. Okay, so for me, about the job is the science experiment of it all and getting to watch your experiment unfold every day. You know, there's not, you know, you come up with a hypothesis, you get to execute, you get to test it, and you get to watch the results unfold. And depending on how invested you are in it, you know, you can watch it literally every day. And to me, that's just the most exciting thing in the world. Secondly, it would be the relationships I've built with customers. You can't trade that for the world. The relationships I've made, the people I've met, it's introduced me to so many different cultures and walks of life. People with tons of money, people with no money, people with tons of money that are about to go broke, and people with no money that just hit a fortune. People that you develop close relationships with that get cancer and die. I mean, you literally see all forms of life, of humanity, day in and day out. And
That's true.
To me, that is incredibly cool. My least favorite part of the job is also the fact that we're dealing with nature and how unpredictable nature can be. It causes a lot of heartache. It causes a lot of lost money. Just a lot of, there's a lot of variability that takes place when you're dealing with nature that is unpredictable. And so I hate when I go and try something and fail because, you know, nature didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And of course, I don't like to be told I'm doing a bad job either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a really hard thing. And, you know, if you're lacking in self-confidence, you know, this is probably not the industry for you, because you're going to have people, you will think the progress you have made on a yard is unbelievable. You'll be high-fiving yourself the whole day, knowing how proud you are of that yard. And then you get feedback from that customer, and they're just, they could possibly be with the results that they see in the yard. So it's a tough thing, but it's reality. So if you don't have the self-confidence, either this industry will put it in you really quick, or you'll fail. And it's kind of the love-hate relationship with the green industry.
True.
All right, Pete, I'm going to take us into the next one here.
Go with
This is
it.
going to be from Wayne. Wayne lives in Seattle, Zone 7, low light, plenty of rain for the fall and winter, and summer drought with water restrictions. He says he just bought a Billy Goat plugger aerator. I do work on turf that is grown on native soil, and I feel when I have cored in the past, the weed problem. The new machine has the option of spikes. So my question is, do you think the increased compaction from spiking will negate any benefit from less weeds? And if spikes will cause more compaction, and that will, is it better, basically he's asking, is it better to core or is it better to spike? And he's worried that coring is going to cause more weeds.
Yeah. Well, dude, you're going to deal with weeds regardless, whether you core it or not. Dirt isn't perfect. That's why you have lawn care programs in place to control weeds, so that you minimize them, see less of them, or don't see as many of them. I'm not completely convinced that you'll ever be able to go an entire year and never see one single weed. I'm in my yard every day, and I still see a weed from time to time. And my yard is probably one of the highest maintained fescue yards in this country because I do so much to it. And even on top of all that, I still see a weed here and there. So, you know, I don't think not doing the aeration or spiking or whatever is going to eliminate weeds, because it's not going to reduce it or anything like that. Best thing to do is get that thing plugged in the fall and loosen that ground up so oxygen and water and nutrients can get down there to the root system and get that grass healthy again.
Usually for spiking or coring, I get asked a lot about if coring is going to cause an increase in weeds, and nothing I've ever noticed at all, really. So I can't really give you an accurate answer over whether or not I could say coring is better than spiking. And does spiking actually cause compaction? In a sense, maybe, but you know, when you do spike, you're also getting oxygen down to the root zone, so it's not all bad. For instance, this is warm season turf. A customer in Alabama would spike his yard every time he mowed. He had it behind his mower. And I mean, that lawn was as flawless as it could possibly be. So, you know, I really just say pick your flavor and go with it. But I'm along the lines that aerating is going to be more beneficial because you're opening up a larger hole. You actually are alleviating compaction and in fact having more of like a, you know, turning the soil effect. How about them apples, Pete?
I like it. Yeah, I'm good. I aerate my yard. Now, it's not a spike; it's a solid tine, kind of like what he was asking. But it as the tines go down in the ground, they do this. So they actually fracture the ground. So they're not actually putting one solid hole in the ground and waddling it out. But I do that 2, 3, 4 times a year, just to try to keep the ground opened up. And even doing it that much, the weeds are still little to none.
Hey, real quick, we got a question in the chat. This is kind of this guy, he just started the season. He backpacks and push spreads everything. He has 50 accounts. Average lot size is 7,000 square feet. Would you recommend a ride-on or a skid sprayer?
At this point in the game, after purchasing 2 Permagreens and seeing the joy on my guys' face that use them, and me not being so tired and seeing how good they operate, I mean, I would buy the ride-on machine in a dang minute. Wouldn't hesitate.
I'll give you the other answer to that. I would say, and I will tell you, I'm the biggest ride-on fanboy there is, especially when it comes to Permagreen. I'm going to say get a skid sprayer.
Oh!
And yeah, and the reason being is, how are you going to fill your Permagreen without a skid sprayer? And what do you do in those situations? Say you take on a special project that's a kudzu project. I've been dealing with a lot of those here recently over the last couple of years, spraying a lot of kudzu. And I would not be able to do that without a skid sprayer. So, and part of it to me also is I kind of have this rite of passage mentality that you know, you need a skid sprayer to kind of get your feet wet in the industry and make sure that's what you want to do. So that man needs a Permagreen. He does need a Permagreen, but he needs to get a skid sprayer first, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can go with that. I can go with that answer and be comfortable with it.
Well, I'm going to jump on to the next question here. I like this one. I think you'll have some good input here. All of the seeds I have seen here for sale are blends of different types and cultivars. I would like to try a single type of grass. But when I ask the question of my supplier, they look at me as if I have three eyes. I can't find much information about what makes a blend better. Perhaps you might help me understand this. So what do you think, Pete? Is it better to go with a monocultivar stand of turfgrass, or is it better to do a three-way blend?
Definitely if you've got a brand new dirt yard, definitely put a blend in. No doubt whatsoever. Simply being, let's say if you just went with rendition, I'm just going to use that for example, and you had a bare dirt yard and you put all rendition in. Well, let's say it was a bad year for Pythium or Rhizoctonia brown patch, and it just so happens to hit that rendition variety that year, it's going to wipe out your entire yard unless you're really good on disease prevention. And whereas if you've got a blend in there with 3 or 4 different varieties, you know, it might take out or might hurt one variety but not the other, so you don't lose your entire yard. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret right here on me with my yard. Obviously I've done that. What I'm talking about when I renovated my yard and killed it all 5 years ago, I went with a blend. It's like a Falcon 3, a 4, and a 5 or something like that. And I really stuck around that until the past 3 years. So the first 3 years I put the blend in it. The past 3 years I've just put a single variety of Falcon 3 in it when I overseed. So once you get it established and going with the different varieties, I wouldn't have a problem whatsoever putting a single variety in.
I'm right. It's the if you have varieties you have, the less potential you have for a single issue taking out your entire lawn.
Mm-hmm.
So until you get that yard established with multiple different varieties, I would stick to a blend, and then you can start sowing in your single cultivars. Good answer, Pete. Good answer. All right, let's move into the next one here. We got a 3-year-old 1950s ranch home. Oh, wait. We got a 3-year-old yard on a 1950s ranch home with 8,500 square feet of cool season turf. He's been controlling bermudagrass with Roundup and Ornamec. And he's used tenacity to kill a bunch of bent grass. He's going to aerate, thatch, and seed in a few weeks. And I want something better than big box store grass seed. We have a Site 1, and I think all they sell is Lesco brand. I'm trying to find quality, newer fescue cultivars from the NTEP list to overseed with, and I can't for the life of me find any retailers. Do you have any seed buying resources that would ship to Lexington? That's all you, Pete.
Oh yeah, right. Well, next year we're gonna. I'm really. Hey, let me put this bug in here. I'm really gonna be trying to set up to where I can move this blend that we use across the country. I don't know what shipping's gonna cost. I got to slow down and be able to research that and get things in order. But Lexington, I'm guessing you're talking about Kentucky. We have a Lexington in North Carolina, but I think this would be Kentucky. Well, I guess might be North Carolina. I don't know.
I think he was Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I have no clue where you get that. Maybe would eBay be a decent place? Maybe.
It may be. You know, there's got to be some. Like I know we have a couple of retail outlets that will source bars for you. You know, so like Mayo's is one here, and then we also have like a Knoxville seed source or something. I would also go to the co-op and see what they can figure out for you. But I'll chime in on Lesco C too. It is not bad. Their All-Pro transition blend is they're usually pretty high-ranking cultivars in. Make sure that's the All-Pro transition blend, though. They have different qualities of seeds that they sell, and they're going to have different price points too. So, you know, their All-Pro transition blend may be, you know, $70 a bag, but they may offer you a bag that's going to cost $53.50, and you know, it's going to be a bunch of varieties that are, you know, score real low as far as seedling vigor and brown patch resistance, the ones that would probably pique your interest the most. So keep that in mind. Good seed is extremely expensive.
Yeah. Get what you pay for.
From Charlie, what volume are you spraying with? Around here, drag a hose and apply up to 2 gallons per 1,000. The most I can get with my Toros around quarters of a gallon per 1,000. Are you still having good results with the low volume application? I only spray low volume. I spray at 1 quart per 1,000, 32 ounces per 1,000 square feet. I love low volume. In fact, I'm a huge believer in it. And anything low volume that's a pesticide, I will not put fertilizers through my Permagreen. Humic acid excluded in that. I will spray humic acid through my Permagreen, but I will not spray iron or through my Permagreen because, one, the potential for tip burn, and two, the pump on it is not designed to handle. What about your results with low volume, Pete? How do you feel about it?
Hey, something just come to mind on that question before the Kentucky lady. See if there's a super sod in your area, because they will sell bags of grass seed. Well, for years, we've always sprayed at 2 gallons a 1,000 off the truck, 400 foot of hose, drag it, walk all the yards, spraying. There are a couple applications we still do that, just for my personal reasons. But other than that, all of our fungicide applications this year, treating for weeds, we use the Permagreens, low volume, and I've just absolutely been blown away, man. That low volume spraying is just the bomb. I absolutely love it.
With you, I'm a low volume guy for life now. A problem I'm having around here is fescue wanting to go into dormancy, and if I take the weeds out, the customer is left with brown grass. Have you found anything to help nurse the fescue along when irrigation is not available? NC State recommends not applying after March, so I tried this approach. It seems to want to push the fescue into dormancy. The fertilizer rep says
water it.
Any opinions on this?
Water it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way around it. If you don't want it dormant, then you've got to get water to it. If you want to mitigate it, if you want to prolong it going into dormancy, you may be able to by using like a moisture manager or, a hydrotain or something. But I mean, you're only going to delay that by a day, maybe 2 days at the most. I mean, you cannot replace supplementing with water. Water is the number one most important thing. You can't, if you take water out of the equation, you don't get, you just can't succeed that way. Water has to be the number one part of the equation for high performance turf.
Yep. One thing we tell our folks, especially the non-irrigated ones, is everything we do from September up until June. Let's see, rest round 5, round 6, round 7, round 1, round 2, round 3. That's roughly 5 applications we do between September and June. And everything we do in that time period, we are pumping that fescue up to the max, pushing roots as deep as we can push them by feeding it. And so that we preparing that grass for the summertime. It's kind of like who's one of the most famous Olympic athletes you can think of, right off the top of your head? Who?
The swimmer.
The swimmer. All right, we'll go with the swimmer. The swimmer, Michael Phelps won all those medals. Well, do you think he trained for 1 month prior to the event? No, he trained well before that to get his body in shape, to get it prepared to go into that main event to win that gold medal. Your grass ain't no different, man. You have to prep that fescue for that summer, because you're asking a polar bear to grow in the Sahara Desert, and it don't work. You know, you're asking it to be out of its element and grow in a hot condition. And then when it gets dry, that's double the trouble. And if it has disease, that's triple the trouble. So my philosophy is pump the grass up as much as you can and get it as healthy as possible going into the summertime, and hope for the best with some weather that cooperates. And
this kind of goes into, you know, Pete has really challenged me to apply more fertilizer than I have felt. I've always kind of babied fescue, and it seems like the more aggressive I get with it, the better the performance I get. And it's, for instance, if you, I think Pete and I were talking about this last night, that if you have a fescue yard and it has brown patch and you spray it with azoxystrobin, yes, it will stop the disease progression. However, it will not recover as quickly if you have sprayed it with azoxystrobin and put down a little fertilizer with it. So it's one of those things where, you know, yeah, the book is going to tell you don't fertilize it, but real world applications is it tends to better perform if you do fertilize it, even though it may be out of its, you know, book zone as far as when you're not supposed to be putting down in.
Yeah, every fungicide we do, we have some type of growth nutrient in the tank mixed with the fungicide. You know, you measure the amount of nitrogen you put out by pounds per 1,000 square feet. You know, fescue's always been recommended at 3 to 4 pounds. Well, our fungicide yards, they get more like 5 or 6 pounds per year. So we really push them, but you know, they're pumping water to them, and they stay nice and dark green during the summer. They grow. They still have to mow them every week. That's because we're keeping a constant supply of food in that plant and keeping the disease going at the same time.
All right, I'm gonna move on to the next question here. All right, bluegrass seed, where it's super hot. They have these new heat-tolerant, disease-tolerant Kentucky bluegrasses. Prosperity, Midnight, Everest, $125 for 10 pounds. They're changing the genetics on the seeds all the time, but could this be true to actually have a heat-tolerant Kentucky bluegrass? This is old Mike. I think I saw Mike tuning in earlier. Here's kind of the thing I will chime in about this is they've got bluegrass at the NTEP trials here in Knoxville that looks gorgeous, but it is not a 1 acre test plot of bluegrass, and all it takes is one summer like we had last year for all that bluegrass to go away. They probably are making improvements in bluegrass as far as its ability to tolerate heat and drought. However, the limited exposure I've seen of it here, sometimes it looks good. Very little of the time it looks great. Most of the time it does not look good at all. So I can't really guide you one way or the other, and they are making advancements on it. You know, in relation to that bluegrass type you call Prosperity, I know there's one by I think there's Barenberg seeds, Barenbrug seed. They have one called the HTB, which is the healthy turf bluegrass or something like that. It's supposed to be the most heat tolerant of them all, at least according to the people here in Knoxville. I did know one person that put it in as a yard and it did not work. They ended up having to kill it all out and then go back with the 80-20 Fescue Kentucky Bluegrass blend, or maybe in a 90-10. So Yeah, I don't know. At $125 for 10 pounds, $12.50 a pound. That's a lot of money to kind of go on a wild guess.
That's high.
That's high. Do you deal with any bluegrass, Pete?
Nope, don't touch it.
I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, I'm gonna move on here to the next one. Corbin, this is a friend of mine up in North Carolina. He's closer to the coast. Can you guys explain Pythium, what to do to prevent it, and how to treat it?
Woohoo! Prolonged periods of leaf wetness. That's, if you look it up and you get the definition of fungus in turfgrass, that's how it's defined. Sometimes you can control that, sometimes you can't. We don't see a lot of Pythium here, maybe from time to time after we get lots and lots of rain and stuff. But our yards are on the fungicide plan, and you know, azoxystrobin and propiconazole is our round one. And when we hit it with that, it's still slightly cooler in mid-May, and we load the plant up. We use very, full rates of that. And then we'll switch over to a fluroxystrobin, and both of those are good controllers of Pythium, from my experience. So you simply need to be on a good fungicide plant. If it's tall fescue and your climate is warm, humid, muggy, damp, and heat is involved, you need to be on a good solid fungicide program, preferably a liquid one, not the granulars. I've never ever been a fan of granular fungicides because I've just never seen them work. And usually, if you do that, man, you can keep it controlled. It would just have to be a crazy outbreak of it to. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You need to be on a fungicide plant. If you have tall fescue and it's hot and humid, the bare bones is get on a fungicide plant, and you probably won't experience Pythium. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. As kind of a general rule of thumb, you're looking at nighttime temperatures above 70 and daytime temperatures above 90, and plenty of moisture in the plant. So afternoon rainfalls, back to back, high heat, high humidity, it's there. So, again, azoxystrobin, propiconazole, fluroxystrobin, any of your strobilurins, especially mixed with the DMI, are going to have some preventative properties for Pythium. However, kind of the issue is that it's only going to work so well, and it doesn't work as long at preventing Pythium as it would like on Rhizoctonia brown patch. So you'll get better control, better prevention control on brown patch than you will Pythium. So if you got the budget to apply it every 2 weeks, by all means, throw some mefenoxam in there, some tebuconazole, and have at it. But a lot of times it's budget crippling. So and it's one of those things, you do the best you can, try and stay on top of it, and keep an eye out for anything weird taking place, because once it starts, I got burned a couple times this year where I'm out applying a fungicide, and then a week later, the yard is smoked to the ground. And as Pythium, you can see where it ran all the way down the hill. So anyway, it's one of those things. And if you do have Pythium, the best way to go about getting rid of it is mefenoxam. That's at least what I've seen in my experience. Known as Subdue Max, used a lot of it this year, and it worked great.
Yeah. Here's a comment right here, Pete. What do you for nitrogen? Oh, were you done with that?
Yep.
Okay. What do you use for your nitrogen source? I've always see you pushing organic, but having I'm not. It's not 100% organic program. Not what we do. It'd be more along the lines of what Matt does. It's kind of a 50-50 deal, because just simply using organic nitrogen, I don't know that I could actually feed the plant as much as I want to feed it and stay within my budget of what people pay me to take care of their yard. So urea releases, fast releases, you know, just your common stuff you go down to the site one and buy. We just have been fortunate enough that we buy enough now that we get to blend the fertilizers like I want. Like my starter fertilizer Cummins at 1822. I just wanted it blended like that so I could add the filler as biosolids. So that's my organic nitrogen along with the urea and the other things that they use for the, you know, the synthetic nitrogen, if you will. So our liquid nitrogens, I can't tell you about that. We'll save that for another
Don't do it, Pete. Don't do it.
I'm not going to.
I'm a big fan of using multiple different nitrogen sources. Very rarely do I use just a primarily organic nitrogen source. So urea, ammonium sulfate, biosolids, of course, calcium nitrate. If you can find ammonium nitrate, sometimes it's easier to find it already in diluted liquid form. You know, mix it up. Sow the plant some different molecules. I like ammonium sulfate because of all the oxygen in that sulfate molecule. 4 parts oxygen. So you know, that's a lot going back to the surface there. All right. I got a guy here in Knoxville. Seed Princess 77 or sod tip 419. I would seed Princess 77 because it is so beautiful. It's down here at if you're ever in downtown Knoxville, go to the World's Fair Park. That is Princess 77, and that is beautiful, beautiful Bermuda grass.
Tom says right here, have either of you used a product called Miramichi? Absolutely, Miramichi Green. Justin Timberlake owns that company, that guy that sings, and the Miramichi golf course, and they built that golf course off of Miramichi Greens, basically biochar, where they take wood and burn it, and it's a specific process, and it burns down to a coal, and they, you know, it retains the carbon and, you know, all that kind of thing. And yeah, I've used it quite a bit and had great success with it. It's a real good product.
I didn't use the Miramichi biochar, but I did use a biochar from a local company called, golly, what were they called? Proton Power. They had these generators that were powered by hydrogen gas, generated their own hydrogen gas by using green waste, heating it in a reactor to 1,000 degrees Celsius. Product was biochar, just straight carbon. On a football field as part of a top dressing project. I had 3 years in a row, and we were trying to get some biological life back into it. Great success, with great success. My only issue with the Miramichi Green product is Permagreen and spread it, so it left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, we have one of those Eco Lawn top dressing. And that's what we had to use. It wouldn't go through a typical spreader. At least it wouldn't for us. What was that other question? Can I prevent the striping effect that happens on septic tank drain fields? Extra green on the drain lines and light green in between. If it's drought situation and your fescue is going dormant, the reason it's going dormant between those lines is where the green is, the dark green is, the actual septic itself is right up under there. So it's continuously leaching out into the ground. So it has a continuous supply of water and biosolids or poop or nitrogen, whatever you want to call it. Whatever comes out of your house and goes in that's nitrogen. And so it's drought stressed in between the lines, and where it's green, it just has an abundance of food. Now, if you have the dark green, light green, dark green, and you're getting good rain, it's cooler temps and all that, you need to feed the yard more, because that tells me that your poop lines have more nitrogen than the dirt right beside it. So you just need to fertilize the yard.
All right.
Whoa. It's great to meet you.
It's great to meet you too.
I'm over here hitting buttons on my phone. My mom texted me. Let's see here. Let's see here. All right, we got more questions about Kentucky bluegrass. It's kind of around the same things. Here we go, Pete. This is one that I'd like to hear your input. I have my own opinions about it, and and we'll kind of tackle this one together. Some people don't use fungicides because they harm beneficial fungi that assist in root development and growth. I think he's talking about mycorrhizae there. Can you provide any information about the truth of this concern? Can you speak about your rationale for using fungicides despite potentially harming beneficial fungi?
So,
what's your input?
Well, the way I tackle issues like this is I always find someone much smarter than myself and ask them. And when we were at the turf grass trials at NC State this year, a gentleman named Lee Butler, who's a turf grass pathologist who went to school, and this is what he does. He eats, breathes, and sleeps turf grass, the science behind it. And that was one of my specific questions to him, because one of my customers asked me and said, well, how does fungicides affect the ground? His answer was, they don't. He said, you have two, and I knew this, but never put two and two together. You have a xylem and a phloem that go in a plant, in plants. One goes up and one goes down. It's kind of like a highway of veins. It's called the vascular bundle inside of a grass plant. And the xylem and phloem is in there. Well, fungicides will only travel through the xylem. And the xylem takes things upwards in a plant. So if you put a fungicide on, the plant takes it in, it will only travel upwards. The only way it gets in the ground is if it rains on it some or it's irrigated in. And even at that, the actual fungicide itself, according to this professor at NC State, has zero effect on the biology in the ground, or so little that it's not noticed. You?
Yep, that is where it too.
Hello?
Say it has zero effect, but I will say that I have gotten knee deep. Sneeze, I apologize. I have gotten so deep. I mean, for hours and hours and hours on soil microbiology, and probably has the highest amount of effect on soil biology is propiconazole. Kind of bizarre. It actually stimulates some biological response. So have an impact on it's also having effect. So then the equation, you run, well, you don't have it. And the reason it kind of goes to a plant, and especially zone, throwing a over, living a hammer is over 85. Arguably, we're for the chances of fungicides. And there's just no real way around it. And you know, like Pete said, I mean, the amount of biological effects it has in the soil is very, very, very close to zero. So how about them apples?
I'm with you on that. Do you recommend Pylex broadcast treatment with a skid sprayer if you don't have a ride on the spreader backpack? Do you have regrowth of either Bermuda or Dallas grass the following year? And Brian down here is using Pylex as a cure to Dallas grass completely when you're done with the third treatment. All right, so the third treatment, I'm guessing you've read the label and you see that you're supposed to do 3 treatments 21 days apart, starting mid-August-ish, 1st of August, somewhere in there. Well, that's a 2 to 4 year program. I got a video on my site about Dallas grass and Bermuda from Willie Pennington with BASF, and he actually helped create Pylex, and he knows it better than anybody. It's not a 1 year deal. It's a program that's going to take 2 to 4 years. And then even after that, you're about 95% control. So do you ever get rid of Bermuda grass 100% in a fescue yard? My answer is no. But I'm going to say no. My yard's a prime example. Super duper highly maintained. I sprayed it 4 or 5 times with Roundup 6 years ago, and I'm just now have a couple of little spots of Bermuda about, you know, that size of a softball starting to come back in from 6 years ago. So, you know, it's one of the things is you got to stay on top of it.
Yep, I sell it as a 3 to 4 year program. Nothing more, nothing less. Well, actually, I say 3 to 4 years minimum, so potentially more. Bermuda grass is tough. I mean, it's you know, I mean, there's a whole market into doing nothing but killing Bermuda grass because it's so difficult to kill. Nobody has the secret answer, but right now this is the best we have in our arsenal to get it killed out. I mean, there's just at least that's scalable. Pylex is very scalable for business owners like us, where products like Flazifop are not, you know, because it's not a 3-step program. It's a, well, you spray it every 3 weeks, and you know, you may kill some fescue, but you know, most of it will come back for the most part. And as far as the Dallas grass, yes, the three applications will kill the Dallas grass. If you didn't say that, I wasn't paying attention, Pete, for the whole thing.
Yeah, Dallas grass. Yeah, it'll knock Dallas grass down pretty hard. Does it come back to next year?
If I noticed it, spraying it out of the backpack, I got better control than I did on a broadcast application.
Yeah, a good shovel works for that.
Shovels work great.
Yeah, yeah. You put your foot on that little metal part and you just push down and pull back, and there it is. Whoop, up and at them.
For the DIY homeowner, do you think that soil tests are absolutely necessary, or do you think that they are mostly for information purposes, perhaps to be utilized after a failed growing season?
Oh, absolutely. It ain't no doubt. I soil test my yard 2 times a year because I want to know what's going on in the dirt. I can't look and see. I know what I'm putting there, so I know what I'm contributing, but I can't see what's going on in the soil because I just don't have those type of eyes. So that's what a soil test does. It tells you that. And even though you're putting X, Y, and Z in the ground per Pete and Matt's recommendation, or Johnny or whoever said do it, it still may not be enough, or you still may be lacking in different areas, or your pH may be off. pH is huge in growing turf grass. So yeah, heck yeah, I'd soil test, and I don't like the ones that you go and buy at the Walmart or whatever, the little where you put the liquid in there and it changes colors. I don't like that. I like taking plugs out of the ground, sending it to a lab, and getting the real deal soil test.
Yep, I'm with you there. Test your soil, see what's in it, see what it's telling you, and you know, learn how to interpret those soil tests. I mean, there's a lot of information there. And you know, here's the thing. You know, for instance, like I'm the kind of guy. I'm an anti-phosphorus guy. I hardly ever, if ever at all, supplement with phosphorus unless it comes through like a biosolid or something. And the reason being is that my soil tests are off the charts in phosphorus, off the charts. How much of that is plant available? Not much. But if I'm also supplementing with carbon, then hopefully I can make some of that tied up phosphorus available to the plant. So, you know, whereas I could go out and just pound it with 1824 every time I aerate and overseed, but if I'm already off the chart on phosphorus, I mean, the only thing I'm doing there is potentially hardening the soil even more. So, you know, very rarely do I come across a situation, at least where I am, where I'm low in phosphorus. I'm usually off the charts high in potassium too. And I think you're opposite, Pete, aren't you? Aren't you like super low in potassium?
Yeah, potassium and phosphorus is typically low here. We are super duper high in iron, which of course that iron that's in there isn't really plant available. So it's not like it's the iron that keeps things green. It's not that type. So yeah, we do have to supplement with P and K. That just, the soil test thing reminds me, you know, back in the day, you were told, hey, throw a little lime on the yard, and the lime makes it green. Well, the lime don't make it green. Chances are, if you'd have done a soil test before that, you'd have found out your pH was super low. And when you put the lime on the yard, you got your pH neutral at about a 6.5 or close to it. And that made those nutrients in the ground available to the plant. And that's what greened up the fescue. So the lime may have greened it, but it was kind of in a, you know, a different way. It wouldn't. It helped. It kind of helped do that, but it basically got the pH right to where the grass could use what was in the ground, and what was there already is what actually greened it up.
Question here about aeration. Is it detrimental to the soil? They say it is too disturbed. Can you, after using machine, and along that, better down seed rider versus than rolling, than adding peat moss, etc.? What's going to give you your best chance of success? How do you feel about those, Pete?
Let me read it again. I was reading one on the comments. Throw seed on the ground when some experts say that one needs to throw seed on the ground when reseeding. Many DIYers go beyond this and letting the seed sit on the ground. And you speak about potential effectiveness of putting seed down with a broadcast spreader versus seeding and raking. I'll tell you what. Simple way to answer this. I don't know who wrote this, but if you know a farmer, I want you to go to that farmer and I want you to ask that farmer, when you put seed in your fields, do you just throw it on top of the ground? That farmer's going to tell you, no, well, that'd be the dumbest thing in the world you've ever done. They cultivate the ground, which would be similar to aeration or aeration. And then they put the seed down, and then there's multiple processes in agriculture, but they work the seed into the soil. Rarely, if you got a real nice, fluffy, soft dirt seed bed, of course you can probably lay it right on top of the ground. As it rains and waters, it's going to mat it down and get that seed to soil contact. But in a yard, man, I just rarely, we don't have any success throwing grass seed on top of hard dirt. We have to break the ground up and loosen it up. And matter of fact, our seeding process, we go out, we fertilize the yard. All right, while we're fertilizing, we're looking for bare dirt spots if there's any. We get done with the fertilizer, we load the grass seed up to Permagreen, we go back out to that dirt spot and put about half the seed out in that dirt spot that we're gonna put there. Then we go back and get the aeration equipment, whether it be a plugger or aerovator or whatever. And so that way, when we hit that dirt spot, it actually works that grass seed down into the ground. And then we go back and seed over the entire yard with, you know, whatever rate we're going at. That's what a slit seeder does. You know, it grooves the seed down into the dirt. And seed on top of the ground has never worked for me.
Yeah, I don't know who told him that aerating is too violent, but I mean, you know, I mean, is it any less or more violent than a tiller? And you know, I mean, I know no-till is becoming a thing, but I mean, you know, I don't know anything that's going to damage the soil except for like a chemical, you know, a salt or you know, an oil or diesel fuel or something. Simply, you know, damage the soil.
Well, no-till is becoming popular in agriculture because they plant the field and nothing goes back on the field until the following season. Whereas a yard, you walk on it, you play on it, you mow on it, you water on it, your kids play on it, you cook out on it. So all this compaction takes place throughout the year, and you have to relieve that compaction and do it in a way that you create the least amount of stress on the grass. And 99% of the times, that's really just a plugger. You pull the plugs out of the ground.
And as far as, you know, getting seed established, you know, anything you can do to maximize that seed to soil contact is key. I mean, that's the name of the game: seed to soil contact.
Yep. Take compost or topsoil and put a light coating over the top. Yeah, that works great. Absolutely.
Let's see here. There are many people trying to make it in the lawn business. How have you managed to be successful? Perhaps there's a key ingredient that is consistently present in all of your business transactions and jobs. Heavy question, not real simple to answer. I think really what it comes down to is kind of the trick to the green industry. I feel like, yeah, results are part of it, but are successful in the green industry that don't deliver the results that Pete would. On a very successful company, you know, I think Pete and I both modeled our business after possible turf grass. However, I think the key ingredient that's consistent in all business transactions and jobs, whether that's my company or Pete's company or any other company that's successful, it's doing what you say you're going to do. What is it? Undersell and over
achieve.
Set low and the product. And you make it look good and happy. Show up, you're going to die. And not everybody's going to get the same result I do. I'm not going to get the same result that Pete does. And but we're all fighting for the same thing. It's just it's someone like Pete or myself. We're going to put a lot of science into it. That say like if you look out there, even True Green's got nice yards. And you talk about as bare bones of a program as possible. So, you know, I mean, that's really what it is. Do what you say you're going to do, and execute on those same guidelines. I mean, that's the key to being successful. There's no magic ingredient as far as what Pete and I put on yards that are going to be consistently present, except for maybe nitrogen. You know, nitrogen and pre-emergence. It's about as basic, but you know, result driven as you can get there. You got anything to add to that?
Building a
Get
good
them drops in your eyes.
Yeah, I know, man. I got my eyes get dry every now and then. Building a good customer relationship is pretty crucial too. I mean, I got customers I've been working with 15 years, and I can get right here and I can text him right now, and we'll go play golf. I mean, I got customers like that I have that relationship with, and they know all about my personal life with my son and all that kind of thing. And the majority of my customers do. And I'm not afraid to be open with them about things. I email them when we're going to Philadelphia for surgery. I email them while we're there and keep them up to date. Let them know what's going on. And so it's big on rapport with me. You know, that Southern hospitality thing, being gentle and nice with customers. And is the customer always right? No, they're not. But it's the way that you educate them and let them know that they may be incorrect. You know, that kind of stuff goes a long ways in keeping that customer. You know what I mean? Is letting them understand the bare bones of how yard stuff actually works and what could go wrong in this situation and what could go right here. If you let them know that, and you know, most people can get a vibe for someone and tell if they're honest and straight up. And you just be honest and straight up with your customer, and you know, and do exactly what you tell them you're going to do. And I'm not saying you'll keep every single one of them, because Lord knows we don't, but majority of them we do, just because of the integrity that's behind our company.
One thing I you know, if I make a mistake on a yard, I'm the first one. I love to get out in front of it. It's very humbling to me when I make a mistake or I mess something up. I've killed yards. I've killed plenty of them, and you know, I don't mean I get off on that sensation of, you know, putting myself out there and say, you know, hey, I messed up, I want to make it right. But it feels good to get that over with, you know, where, you know, because that initial feeling of being sick to your stomach and wanting to throw up because you see a dead yard, and you can either run and hide from it, or, you know, you can just say, look, I messed up. Let me fix it, you know, and I think a lot of companies try and hide from that, and they usually aren't very successful. It's the companies that do say, yeah, we made the mistake, now we want to fix it. Now, what you have to be sure of is, did you actually make the mistake, or are you tricking yourself into believing you made a mistake because you're not exactly sure of what you did or why you did it? So that's another thing to keep in mind too. Let's see here. Can you provide tips for growing cool season grass? This is going to be seeding in the spring and summer. Do you have any tips? He says, I'm pretty sure that Pete did a successful turf-type tall fescue seeding during the summer not too far long ago. I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Did you do a seeding in the summer that was successful?
No. Yeah, no, I think he means like, let's see, transition zone, know that seeding in the spring and summer does not produce that.
I will tell you, I have never, ever had, I take that back. I've had a select couple of spring seedings that have turned out okay. But I mean, on that scale, I mean, I'm saying like almost zero. I may have had 3 or 4 extremely successful done in the spring.
If it's an exceptionally wet year, you might can get away with that, or if they're irrigated, you might can get away with that. But you're going to deal with a buttload of weeds too, because you didn't put no pre-emergent down. Because if you were to put your pre-emergent down, you wouldn't, your grass seed wouldn't come up, or it shouldn't anyway. The customers we sign up in the springtime and their yard looks like crap, we explain to them the entire process of a year, and we ask them to wait until fall of the year to do the seeding. And 9 out of 10 times they've lived with this yard for years, and I say, well, hey, what's 6 more months? Let's do it right. Let's do it the correct way. Most of the time they'll go with that.
Companies are taking phosphorus out of fertilizer. Can you speak about the diminishing value of phosphorus in the turf world? We be concerned that phosphorus is more difficult to obtain. Is phosphorus absolutely necessary, or can nitrogen and potassium do all the work needed for establishing and maintaining turf? No, nitrogen and potassium cannot take the place of phosphorus. It just doesn't work that. It's the versus nest turf, but I think as phosphorus becomes harder and harder to obtain, it's going to be harder and harder to establish turf grass. Once it's up, phosphorus isn't going to play as much of an important role. However, it's getting it up and getting it to maturity where that phosphorus plays a key role. You got any input on that?
Not really. I mean, I'm sure there's natural forms of phosphorus out there that you can use, like organic. I guess I don't know. I've never really researched it.
Yep, it's in biosolids. I think biosolids have like a 520 analysis.
Yeah,
a Class A biosolid.
We don't have those restrictions yet, thank goodness. So we just have been using it as we've been using it for years. So when we get to that point, I'll figure something out.
Can you discuss any research on organic fungicides, preventative curatives such as cornmeal and serenade? I don't know anything about cornmeal or serenade as being an effective organic fungicide. I will tell you that the one promising thing we do have on the horizon as far as an organic fungicide will be a product called Zeo, also known as Howler in the fungicide in the agriculture world. It's produced by a company called Ag Biome in North Carolina. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is one of their big backers, as well as Syngenta and Monsanto, and I believe Bayer as well is playing a part in it. And it is showing in the NC State trials to have an equal amount of effectiveness as azoxystrobin. It has an EPA registration number, so there is an active ingredient in it that they are listing. However, they have not released it to the market yet, and it may not be out till, well, it was supposed to be out this past year or this year, and it hasn't. So they're hoping spring of this coming season it will be out, but we'll see. But I don't think you're going to find an organic fungicide that works unless it has some sort of living biology that is attacking pathogens or very specific viruses or bacteria. You can't suppress the development of it unless you eliminate, the conditions that are going to be favorable for development. So you would have to eliminate, the amount of air or humidity or moisture or light. Something of that sort would have to come into effect, and I just don't think you're going to get anything that will be effective organically. What about you, Pete? What do you think?
No. Fungicides. I'm gonna probably stick with the chemical synthetic versions or whatever. If they do come out with more that's exceptional, it's probably gonna cost so much you can't afford it.
Yep.
A CD on that last question. CD said, P, I think he's talking about when I put my irrigation in. Okay, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, when I put the irrigation, I seeded the ditch lines. Well, yeah, I got germination in 5 days. It's on one of those videos. We left for Philadelphia. I ran the water like I wanted it and come back, and yeah, I had grass 2 inches tall. So, yes, I got it to germinate in August. But I ran the water 4 times a day for 5 or 6 or 7 minutes of zoning. So I kept the ground moist, the surface moist the whole time. It germinated quick, so I hope that's what he was looking for. Now, right now, I've cut the irrigation completely off because I'm actually wanting my yard to dry up because I'm going to rake it. Some people call it dethatching. I'm getting ready to do a video on seeding, and I'm going to explain the difference between dethatching and raking the yard out. And so I need it dry to be able to do that. And I'll explain why I'm doing that. It's not typical. I usually don't do that stuff.
So I'm typing an answer there, checking the chat. You get better long-term results using granular fertilizer versus foliar feeding. It depends, Tony, on how often you want to apply, if that's what you're asking. I mean, because nitrogen is nitrogen. They're both going to do the same thing. It's just at different times of the year, you'll get better root uptake. At different times of the year, you'll get better foliar uptake. So it really just comes down to making sure you're getting down the right amount of nutrients at the right time. I like granular fertilizer just for ease of spreadability. But if you're going to be on that property every week, you may go with foliar feedings because you can microdose every time you're out there. And then, Mike asked this question about calcium to magnesium ratios. I don't do base saturation percentages. I just make sure my calcium levels are okay and my magnesium levels are okay. If you're worried about dropping your magnesium levels, or you got high P and high mag, then probably some of that calcium is tied up, and that's why you want to get your supplement with your calcium, because a lot of it's not going to be plant available. So that's just food for thought too.
Hey, here's a good question, man. If you were not limited by climate, weather, soil, please discuss the type of grass that you would grow and why. I grow tall fescue, man, because it's just so dang. It's just so dang pretty, man. That's some good looking stuff. Hey, if I didn't have a climate to worry about, if I could grow it inside a laboratory, it'd be the best looking thing you ever saw. You'd want to sleep on it every night. It looks so good. I'm a cool season guy.
I would be.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm a cool season guy versus a warm season because I like Halloween, I like Thanksgiving, I like Christmas, I like my yard green during the holidays. That's the bare bones to it. I like it. I like the texture of fescue better. I like the height of that I cut. If you can cut Bermuda at 4.5 inches, but I just don't think it looks as good. So it's just personal preference things right there. I know you're getting ready to spit out something totally different.
That's right. I'm going to go with zoysia grass. And zoysias, I'm going to go and buy 52 zoysia. And probably somewhere in like Key West, Florida. Maybe somewhere where it'll just stay green all year long. Maybe Hawaii, something like that. But yeah, I would do just your straight up Myers Z52 zoysia. Can't beat it, man. Can't beat it. You're a golfer. You ever played a zoysia course, Pete?
I have not.
It's a lot of fun. Your ball is always on a tee when you're on a Bermuda course.
I can imagine. Zoysia would actually probably be my second choice of grass, to be honest with you. If it wouldn't go brown during the winter, I actually like zoysia quite a bit.
What's your favorite cultivars or grass types to seed?
We use Falcon 3, and is that what he's talking about? The variety, yeah. Falcon 3 and Rendition, Escalade, Falcon 4. Ones like in that.
I was going to say Falcon. I mean, it's tried and true. All of them are great.
I'm
like
a big
Falcons.
Yeah. Please discuss the ways in which Bermuda is the worst thing that can happen to a non-Bermuda yard. please discuss the ways in which Bermuda is the worst thing that can. Well, one, if you're on a high fertility plan and you're in a hot climate, the Bermuda is just going to constantly go just like that. Every year it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually it can take over your entire yard. So that's probably the worst thing that could happen. Is if you wanted a non-Bermuda yard, but you have Bermuda and the Bermuda spreads and takes over, I would say that would be the worst thing that could happen.
The only thing I have to say is
Embrace.
yeah, I was going to say, go ahead and just convert your lawn into a Bermuda yard and be happy you did. Simple enough, easy enough. Options for homeowners to control Bermuda in tall fescue. Pilot sounds great, but it's steep in price. Any other recommendations on semi-affordable herbicides we could use?
No, I don't know of anything but Pilex. You could probably, you might could get away with calling, because I've got a couple of neighbors that call me, and I hooked them up. May not supposed to do this, but really don't care. I'll sell them 1.5 ounces or an ounce or whatever. So you could be able to live in St. Louis, Kyle. You could find a lawn care company that does sort of the thing that me and Matt do, and you could approach them and say, "Hey, do you mind selling me 1 ounce or 2 of pallets?" It's always worth a shot.
You can use Fusilade or Ornamec over the top. You can go with Acclaim. I mean, but Fusilade is going to be your best cheap option. But again, it's going to do a lot of damage to your fescue. So, Triclopyr ester, Turflawn ester, you could do that. Just stay on top of it. The thing is like once you start those applications, if you miss one, you're wrecked. And it's still going to be a 3 to 4 year process. So you're going to end up spraying a whole lot of herbicide through the course of the year. So is it any cheaper than spraying Pilex in the long run? Probably not. It's a cheaper upfront expense, but you're going to end up probably spending the same amount of money because you have to spray it and 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 spray it. What's next?
That's a long question, man.
Oh man. How can a homeowner enhance the appearance and overall health of my lawn beyond the Milorganite treatment, spot spraying for weeds, fungicides, a little bit of synthetics without breaking the bank? Perennial ryegrass and bluegrass with some fescue.
Is that the same question I have?
Is that Mark in Connecticut?
Yeah. Yeah, about the 3 kids?
Yeah.
Okay. Question is for you and Pete. How can a homeowner like myself enhance the appearance and overall health of my lawn beyond the Milorganite treatment? Okay, I got you. And use a little bit of synthetics a year without breaking the bank as well. I do core aerate and oversee the fall. But basically, it's exactly what you're saying is limit your herbicides. If that means going and buying a little like a spray bottle and doing your calibration with that and putting your herbicide in that and just using spot spraying treatments. Other than that, I mean, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of organic fertilizers out there other than Milorganite. Just Google it. They're all over the place. So you don't have to use Milorganite.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're putting down Milorganite, a little bit of synthetics, fungicides, spot spraying weeds, and you're still wanting to take your yard to the next level, chances are your timing is probably somewhere off if you're still not satisfied with it.
Yeah.
So maybe dialing in your timing would help. But I mean, there's just no real easy way to answer that question. I think it sounds like more of a timing more of a timing issue than anything. Maybe if you want to use some later, some Trinaxapac. Trinaxapac is a relatively cheap way, and you know, every 2 weeks, get out there, spray you a half rate of growth regulator, and that baby will tighten up real nice and fine. It'll be all kinds of pretty. So it's just another option, cheap one. From John, my entire lawn is 3,200 square feet. The front is Bermuda. Don't know the exact cultivar, and about 1,800 square feet. I cut with a 27-inch True Cut Real Type mower. The front is currently at 1 1/4 inch and looks great. I had a couple places that I guess had a really harsh winter, hadn't filled in. The backyard is where my issue lies. The area is partially shaded and on a slope. I know these two things alone make it difficult to grow grass, but I'm still trying as hard as I can. And here's what I've already done to alleviate. Wow. He has sodded with Greg Norman ZT11 zoysia, fertilizing according to NC States and his local co-op's recommendations, has soil test, followed guidelines for correcting deficiencies and pH issues, had a lot of patch problems, patch diseases. I've treated with propiconazole, neem oil, Serenade, garden-friendly fungicide, myclobutadil, and H2O2. I have not watered at all except to water in fertilizer pesticides. If you're having that many issues out of if you're seeing mycelium in the morning, it sounds like either Pythium or hardcore patch disease. Yeah, I mean, I understand the fungicides you're using, but you need to step your fungicide game up. You gotta put down a strobin.
Yep.
Without putting down a strobin, you'll just never see the recovery that, you know, you're kind of blowing money using things like propiconazole and myclobutadil. And I'll tell you, Serenade and hydrogen peroxide and garden-friendly fungicide and neem oil are just not going to cut it. The dense cobwebs you see are probably funnel weaver spiders, so I would not get too excited about that. But step your fungicide game up, and you know, I know you're doing everything right by the book, but again, the book is only there as a guide. It is not the end-all, be-all.
OCD.
Here is C.D. Andrews. Can you describe the pros and cons of a granular fertilizer versus liquid? Which would you recommend for a prosumer? I'm going to sneeze, sorry. I started purchasing pro-level herbicides and fungicides. The labels often indicate they're safe to mix. If so, with which types of products? When combining products, how do you know the ratio to mix? Do you have one part of each product per 1,000, or should you reduce the amount of each since you have multiple ingredients? I still like granular over liquid because I like to apply with my Permagreen. So that's the only reason. As a prosumer, if you don't mind spraying every week or every 2 weeks, then yeah, go liquid and spoon feed it, and you know, you'll love that too. When mixing products, how do you know which ratio to mix? So it's hard to say. You have to understand the science of how those chemicals are going to interact with one another and how they actually work on the plant. So, for instance, if you're using quinclorac and sulfentrazone, you can run them both at a full rate, or you can dial back your sulfentrazone. And how do you know to dial back that sulfentrazone? You have to understand how it works. It's going to have a scorching effect on the leaf, and so that tells me I can dial that back because I'll get the immediately looks like it's killed from the sulfentrazone, and then I'll get the systemic activity from the quinclorac. So it's hard to say. Typically, you do want to run the full rate of each product because they're going to have different modes of actions and combined together. Sometimes they'll have synergies, sometimes they don't. So it's hard to say. Really, you just kind of got to dig deep into that label and find out how exactly it works. You got anything on that?
You get a little more scientific than I do. If I want to mix a 3-way and a trichlopyr, I just put them in there together and don't worry about it. As far as the differences in granular and all, of course, the liquids are mainly going to hit the leaf of the plant, and it's going to take it in, and you're going to feed the plant right there itself. And granular kind of more gets on the ground and is watered in, and the roots take it up, push it up to the plant. The liquids are going to be quicker, that kind of thing. I love liquid fertilizers, calciums, nitrogens, all that stuff, because I can do so much with it. I can mix my pre-emergent in it, in it. I can mix my weed killer in it. I can mix iron in it. I can put sweet tea in it if I wanted to. I can put with granular. You can't mix stuff with the granular. I mean, if that makes any sense. So, you know, they're both good. We do 7 apps a year, and September, let's see, round 5, round 6, round 7, and round 4. We do 7. 4 of them are granular and 3 are liquid. And then all of the fungicides are liquid that we do. And of course, each fungicide, we spike it with different things. So yeah, you can mix it. As far as mixing on that, I was talking to another guy on a text, and I meant to call him back. But this part per whatever, I never look at the ratio, like a 10-to-1 ratio or whatever. I always look at a rate per 1,000 square feet or a rate per acre. Like take a liquid nitrogen. You know, on the label it may say use anywhere from 1 gallon to 5 gallons per acre. Well, I don't do the ratio stuff like 2 gallons of nitrogen to 5 gallons of water. I use my carrier, which would be 12 gallons. And in the case of a permagreen, it'd be 12 gallons. If I wanted to put 2 gallons of nitrogen on the acre, I would put 10 gallons of water and 2 gallons of nitrogen. And it gets, to me, it gets real confusing, that ratio thing that they put on the labels. I always look at the amount per 1,000 square feet and the amount per acre. Of course, you have to have your machine or your sprayer calibrated correctly, or your backpack sprayer calibrated so that you put the right amount out. Hope that helps, CD.
No, I agree. I always look at rate per acre, and then I do the math from there.
Yeah. So much easier. Whoa, so much easier.
Yeah, yeah. Why do some products have different rates for commercial versus residential applications? That's because of the potential exposure to people. You know, some labels will have a commercial rate because the likelihood of coming in contact with a human with bare feet or their hands or dogs rolling around in it would be significantly lower than a home. I'm squaring the transition zone and would like to know if you could outline a rough schedule of products and when to apply for pre-emergence, fungus prevention, and some of your favorite products for post-emergent control. Do that pretty quickly. February, March, April, get down 2 applications of pre-emerge. Fungus control, start, and get down your fertilizer then. Fungus control, I usually start May 15th. Then, so May 15th, June 15th, July 15th, August 15th. And then aerate overseed September. And then, you know, more fertilizers to close out the year, get that plant as mature as possible for the end of the year. And then the previous summer, or the preceding summer. And then some of your favorite products for post-emergent control. I don't use a lot of post-emergent products, but, you know, Pilex, Triclopyr, Fluroxapyr, 2,4-D, 3-way, Quinclorac, Quicksilver. Yeah. How about them apples, Pete? You got anything on that?
I mean, bare bones, basically what you said. Get 2 pre-emergents down before 1st of May, I guess. And if you're rain, you have to look at the weather. If you're rainy in May and the fescue's growing good and it's flushing hard and it's got a good color, and you see rain coming, throw the food to it, push it. The the research, the paperwork, and the documents is coming from NC State. It's debunking that whole March 15th fertilizer thing for tall fescue, how you don't fertilize after this date. Well, that's inaccurate. That's inaccurate information. NC State has all that. They're getting ready to release the verbiage on it of the test, and so all that's going to change. Oh my gosh! Now we can fertilize after March 15th. It's all up on the weather. So my program changes from year to year. If it's dry in May and we're getting ready to go into round 3, we'll back off the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium a little bit, and we'll go more organic. But if we're wet and the grass is doing good and thriving, we'll hammer it with fertilizer and just keep pushing it right on through the summer. And it worked well for us. Wintertime, a winterizer, start a fertilizer, then wheat grass seed should be good.
Got a question in the chat. Do either of you use gallery herbicide for broadleaf prevention? Tony, I'm about to use gallery for the first time because I got a yard that's eat up real bad with chamber bitter. And so I'm going to do an application of Pilex and put down gallery. So I will actually document that on YouTube, how it goes. This will be really my first hoorah with gallery, aside from Snapshot. So we'll see how that goes.
I don't even know what that is.
Isoxaben, I think, is the active ingredient. Primarily controls broadleaf weeds.
Yeah. No, I use the
decent problem.
Escalade.
Right. This is a really long one. This is a guy. He started building a liquid turf fertilization and weed control business. He likes to use the triazone ureas, which is like a methylene urea. It's a slow release liquid. Basically, it's reacted with, what is it reacted with? What do they embalm bodies with? Do you know what they embalm bodies with, Pete?
I've never embalmed anybody, so I don't know. Man, I don't know about this.
I can't remember what the formaldehyde.
Formaldehyde.
Urea with formaldehyde, and it puts this real long chain on it. Yeah. In urea, and then if you react it and it goes even longer, you get triazone urea. You let it go even longer, you get urea form or urea formaldehyde. Actual slows to break down. It may break down over the course of like 2 years. It'll release. So I don't like using it because it releases so slow. You can use it in conjunction with a quick release like ammonium sulfate, not of it. The reason is he's using a triazone urea and a urea that comes from Uflex Umax. He's trying to build an entirely liquid program, and I felt like a triazone with Uflex and sulfur and iron is the magic bullet. I can tank mix everything liquid, including fungicides, growth control, PGRs, etc. However, it seems you've gotten away from liquids, or at least for fertilizer. Why is that? Just so you're not dragging a hose on properties? Yes, I've gotten away from liquids because I do not want to drag a hose. If I was in a market where my average size yard was 3,000-4,000 square feet, I'd probably pull a hose. But I'm in a market where my average size yard is 10, 11, 12,000 square feet. And as far as scalability, adding employees, yeah, liquid's probably easier, but if I can have 2 employees that do the same amount of production as 3 employees that are out, that's an extra truck on the road, that's an extra salary on the road, that's extra potential for accidents, workers' comp, it's just an added level of stress. So that's why I'm trying to get away from liquid fertility And if I'm going to use liquid, it's mainly to enhance my granular fertility, such as humic acid with urea or humic acid with ammonium sulfate. What about you, Pete?
I'm sorry, I was reading all these. That's a big long question, man.
I mean, it sounds like the liquid he's using sounds good. It's a mix of slow release and quick release fert. And the quick release fert has a urease inhibitor tied in with it. So, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with this product. It's just however he wants to apply it. I don't want to walk a yard anymore, so I'm not going to apply liquid. But if he wants to walk yards, then no. I mean, that sounds like a good product. He's got miners in it and iron and sulfur and urea and even more potassium. It sounds good.
We used a lot of trials in the past, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Next one.
Sorry for the
They're coming
emergency vehicle there. He needs help.
I need help with Dallas grass, nutsedge, and my TT in Bermuda. Wait till October, November, round up these areas. I've been watching your videos. I guess it would just take time to clear up with Dallas grass. Can residential Can residential people use MSMA on their yards? Is that legal?
They're not supposed to. It's not supposed to be used on residential property. So even homeowners aren't supposed to use it. But I mean, if you want an easy, cheap way to get rid of it, MSMA it. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then go get you some Tribute Total and do, it works. It just works really well. I'm in a group with a bunch of lawn care applicators, and they're all doing their Tribute Total applications right now, and it is all working. So, look at this. Formaldehyde is toxic to mammalian tissue and can be a huge liability issue, shipping even specialty. Yeah, Barry, you're right. However, when it's reacted in the urea form way or methylene urea, it's no longer a formaldehyde chain. So that's why the amount of toxicity drops greatly. It's like, for instance, the whole MSMA debate is, it's monosodium methanearsenate. It's no longer an organic arsenic, which is harmful to you and I. It goes up in the water. It's still an arsenic compound that's in the water, and it looks bad on paper, but in actuality, it's not as dangerous as it sounds, if that makes sense.
You always make sense, man. How do
other lawn care companies keep from cross-contamination from one yard to the other?
Huh.
You don't?
Yeah, that's a hard thing to do, man. I mean, even if we got a non-treated yard on the right, a non-treated on the left, and a exceptional yard in the middle, on the edges, you're more than likely to see some weeds at certain times during the year because that's just the way it is. And you have to spray them, and they go away for a minute, and then the guy next door mows and throws the seed heads back over in the yard, and they flush out and germinate, and you spray them again. And that's an ongoing battle for sure.
Since you both deal with turf-type tall fescue, do we need to aerate and overseed every year? Or if the turf is thick and the ground isn't too compacted, can we skip a year or even two? Pete, you have this luxury. I do not.
Well, I'd ask him, how does he know it's not compacted? I'd have to ask him that question with his question. I'm going to aerate and overseed every single year. It does not matter. It's just, to me, it's basic lawn care. No different than you going and changing the oil in your car. Go 2 years without changing the oil in your car and tell me how that works out. So, yeah, I'm dead set on, yes, aerate and seed every single year. you may not have to be quite as aggressive if your yard is
Me
very
too. I am too. And the reason being, yeah, if you feel like your yard is thick and healthy, then just drop your seed rate. But about growing turf type tall fescue, and anything you can do to help improve that soil condition just have to happen. So yeah, I would definitely aerate it every year. Without getting into the organic versus synthetic debate, what are the best ferts to use for each time of year? I use Milorganite Ringer throughout the year, but would like to supplement and have read that you want a high nitrogen quick release in the spring, and again in the fall, then a quick release later in the fall prior to winter. I've already added pre and post herbicides, kelp, fungicide manager, none altogether for sprayers are all possible. 11,000. And is backwards opinion on for stated spring duration, and it's all flush of grass, slow release that high nitrogen release as possible, that duration long as possible. Also in the fall, it may not be as long of a duration, but I still want slow release in the fall. I want slow release during the summer so I can microfeed. And then in the winter, or when, or really actually starting in the fall is when I switch to quick release, because I want that plant to go ahead and use up as much of that N as possible to help that plant reach maturity. So I'm slower in the front of the year and then faster at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Same here. Exact same way.
Yeah. Pete, can we buy your seed blend somewhere as a homeowner? I don't have access to the newest and greatest varieties based on the in-depth studies. I'd buy it right from you if I could. I'm up in PA, baby.
Next year, baby. As a matter of fact, I come to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania about 2 to 3 times a year. So I don't know where you're at, Rob, but we might hook up. I might just bring you the bag and put it on your front porch.
All right, Matt and Pete, I have a customer who knows a lot about fall fescue, but he doesn't have time to take care of his lawn, so he pays me to do it. His lawn goes from heavy shade to full sun throughout his yard. Could you please recommend a blend that will help his lawn when we overseed this fall? This is my first year on his lawn. The heavy shade areas are sparse. I was thinking the blend of fine fescue for shade or tall fescue for sun. You guys have a blend you like that I can buy from Green Resource or Site One or somewhere else like that? Maybe I can make my own blend. Thanks. P.S. He does not have irrigation. I'll tell you, my opinion on this is if he's got shade, cut down trees. There's something to get more light in there, because no matter which turf type you're going to go with, you're going to experience the same thing. Without light, there's not going to be enough photosynthesis that takes place. You're going to see an eventual decline in the health of the plant because it's not producing enough carbohydrates to self-sustain. So that's my opinion on that. The only thing I've seen that does super well in dense shade is perennial ryegrass. And so you can get grass for 6 months out of the year, but that's it. So I don't know. How do you feel about that, Pete? You know anything that?
He mentioned Green Resource. They have a mix called High Green. I think it's called High Green Shade Mix. You can try that. I mean, it's got like some perennial rye and some like creeping fescue, red fescue, hard, those shade type fescues. You can try that and see what's up. But I'm with you, man. Plants got to have photosynthesis to happen, and if it's during peak season for a particular type of grass, like fescue in the spring or fall, even in the shade, that grass might look good and strong and healthy. But then, as you get out of its peak season, when things aren't going so good for it, then you add shade on top of that. it just makes it hard to grow, man. It's very difficult to do that. So, yeah, limb some trees up, thin some trees out, and try a shade mix. That's what I do. I can't hear anything you're saying.
All right. My question is about turf type tall fescue. This is the last one, believe it or not.
Yeah.
In northeast Georgia and have Bermuda in my front yard and have it looking great. My backyard, however, is not looking good at all. I have a lot more shade back there. I'd like to do an overhaul of my backyard and plant fescue. My experience passes cycle fescue, my too far soft fescue, and the best results. Oh, you are not for turfing. If people do it, and so you're not too far. Let's process, huh? I would all in simple directions.
I can't hear anything you're saying.
You got me now?
There you are. There you are. What is it? This last question from Tanner?
Yeah. So is he too far south to grow fescue in northeast Georgia?
Northeast Georgia. I'd say he'd probably be borderline. I mean, if he's got water to put on it and he's got good fungicides to put on it, he might be okay. But you know, we're borderline. I'm about 20 minutes south of the Virginia line, right dead in the middle of the state in Greensboro. And so we're about we're borderline, man. You know, even down in Charlotte, a lot of the grass in Charlotte's Bermuda and zoysia. And then, you know, of course, Georgia's below South Carolina. I don't know, man. That'd be a tough one. That'd be hard. I think you could do it, but it'd be tough to do.
I think it'd be hard. And as far as getting it established, I'd, you know, either split seed it or do like Pete does and aerate it, or just aerate the absolute mess out of it. And if you do split seed it, I mean, multiple directions, you know, maybe broadcast half your seed first and then drop your other half while you do split seed. I mean, you can make it work. It's just you're going to have to spend a lot of money on fungicides. I'm doing this in a parking garage because I'm at the Knoxville Asian Festival where my wife is performing with her friends, and I still wanted to do my YouTube live. So how about that?
Hey, what about zoysia? Are there zoysia varieties that will grow in shade decent?
Yes and no. So, you know, they tout Palisade as being super shade tolerant or whatever, but I mean, it all seems to do the same to me. You get 2-3 good years out of it, and then it begins to fail. So,
yeah, cool. Good deal, man. This is fun.
This was fun. So, I want to say a big thank you to Pete for doing this with me. Let's do this again. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, this is pretty neat, man.
But this was great. This was great. Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Rob right here said I was concerned about the weed seed content, but Green Resource said they have to do that because of the mix. The suggested was using Crown Jewel. Rob, they've got grass seeds out there that doesn't have any weed seed in them. Just read the tag. They got 4 or 5 sitting out there on pallets. Go through there and look at the tag on each one of them and find the one that has 0% weed seed and is good fescue, and buy it. And if not, wait till next year. I'll save you some.
Let's see. Let's see. Got it.
What?
Thank you for watching,
Yeah, man.
Denny. Thank you to everybody. This was great.